Hi, welcome. Today's video is about all the changes that are going to happen in my life because there are some big changes coming up. I also want to share the news with you that the channel hit 20,000 subscribers, which is, I cannot believe it. It is insane. And I never thought that this would be possible for a channel like mine. And so I want to thank you so much for being here, for having hit that subscribe button, and for wanting to hang out with me every week. So recently there were many plot twists that happened in my life, and one of them is that I quit my job. So I've been working in Brussels for 8 years, and before I have always been going to school in Brussels, and so I've been going to Brussels all my life, and I've spent so much time commuting. And one of the things that I disliked about going to Brussels was just the commute. 3 hours is a long time. It's 1.5 up and 1.5 to go home. And even though I was reading, there were a lot of issues with the trains, with the subway. Oftentimes there was a strike going on. At the moment, I'm still management assistant in a lawyer's firm, but that is going to change from August. So let me just quickly fix my candle. All right, many of you know that I am a published author here in Belgium, and the publishing house offered me a job, which is amazing. And I instantly took the chance because books are such an important thing in my life, and I think it will be amazing to work with books as my job as well. And yes, that's about to change. I'm starting in August and I can work from home. So this is an amazing luxury. I know a lot of people don't like working from home. I know a lot of you do. It really depends from person to person, but I personally, it's a dream to be able to work full-time from home. So I will be doing 25 hours, so that's not going to change. So I'm a massage therapist and I work from home. I have my own practice at home. And so, yes, I'm going to be combining those two jobs. Another really fun change that is coming is we are going to be having a new family member actually very soon. So we're going to be welcoming a new cat as company for Toulouse. And I don't know if you can see him, but he's right behind me. And he's always been alone, and I'm a bit scared of his reaction. We already did a test with another kitten to see just how he would react, and everything went well. But we will be going very slow with the introduction. We will be keeping them separate for a while. But yes, that's really exciting, and I cannot wait for her to arrive. It's a girl, and her name will be Dea. Dea is a name that I got from The Man Who Laughs by Victor Hugo. And as you know, Victor Hugo is my favorite author. I love his works to pieces. And yes, that was the inspiration for her name. I looked up the meaning and it says that it's Latin for goddess. Okay, let's talk about the channel and about my literary goals. The content is not going to change. I want to continue doing book discussions, how to read videos, deep reading videos, content about slow living, about journaling, and so on. So nothing is going to change there. I'm also going to keep doing one video a week. It's sometimes kind of challenging to do that with all of the other things that I have going. So I wish I could do more videos a week, but I cannot, working full-time and then having a lot of other hobbies as well. So I will keep doing once a week videos. As for the newsletter, some of you may know that I have a newsletter. It's just once a month, so no spam at all. It's just me recapping the month, telling you what I have been reading, what I have been enjoying, a recap of the videos that I posted on my YouTube channel, and I will keep doing that. It's a free newsletter, so feel free to go to my profile and subscribe if you are interested. I also have a Patreon page where I host a book club. And this book club is a chat group that is going on Discord. We have a wonderful community of like-minded people who are obsessed with reading, and we read and discuss the books on the schedule. If you're a Patreon member, I want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It really means a lot and I appreciate it. And I'm so happy to have you in my community. As for my literary goals, I would like to keep going with following lectures online on literature. So I have a couple of Shakespeare lectures that I still need to follow this year, and they are on the websites of universities, and there are a lot of free courses to be found. I also have a video on this, so if you're interested, go and make sure to check that out. As many of you know, I love French literature, and it's one of my goals to should I say become an expert? I don't know. I just want to know French literature really well. I want to read as many authors as I can. And right now I'm focusing on authors who wrote and published before the 1900s. But eventually I also want to read more modern French classics. But for now I'm going to stick to the ones published before the 1900s. And my goal is to read as many different authors as I can. As for this year, the second part of this year, I want to focus a little bit more on philosophy and Greek literature because I have some serious gaps there. And I just want to make a start this year. And then next year, maybe I can read some more difficult works, or especially in philosophy, you really have to start at the beginning because everyone was reacting to the previous works. And so you really have to go in this kind of specific order. And that's what I, want to get started this year. What I also want to do is to reread my notes more frequently in order to get to know passages and quotes by heart. It is one of my dreams to be able to quote from my favorite authors and my favorite works just from the top of my head. So therefore, I will have to reread the quotes that I have written down more frequently. And this is something that I really want to do more. I also would like to learn some poetry by heart. I already know part of a very long poem by Victor Hugo in French, but I would love to be able to memorize The Ballad of Reading Gaol by Oscar Wilde. It is a wonderful poem, and yes, I want to learn it by heart, and I think that's going to be the first one that I try to memorize. As for my personal goals, the weather is getting better here in Belgium, so hopefully June, July, August, September will be months where I can go on walks more frequently. I want to leash train the new cats there, and we are going to start from the beginning with this, and I would love to take her on walks. So this is also going to help me to get out of the house more and to get some exercise. I would also like to learn embroidery. I've been meaning to learn it for a very long time. I already have the supplies, but I would really like to get started with embroidery this year. As for languages, my first language is Flemish, my second is French, and my third is English. And I am currently learning Italian and Latin. And it's really so much fun. I am amazed by how similar Latin and Italian and French are. Like there are so many words that I can already understand because I know French. So I'd like to continue that. It's not my intention to become super fluent in those languages. I just want to make a basic start, and I'll see where I go from there. Concerning my novels, so last year I published my first English novel after 5 Flemish books, Dutch books. So my first English novel, The Painter's Muse, came out last October. And I've been working very hard on a new novel, and it's gonna be published at the beginning of next year. And so I'm almost finished. I think I will have one more round of proofreaders and then I will send it to the publishing house. And then I'm going to get started on a new project. My goal is to start the project in July, and it would be wonderful if I could manage to finish a first draft this year. So those are my writing goals. And now I would love to go to your questions because you've sent in a lot of questions for me. And yes, let's get started. I'm going to go to the channel and read them one by one, and then I'm going to try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Let's get started. First question. Congratulations on your lush and lovely channel. Thank you so much. Would love to hear more about your debut novel and your writing process. Okay, so The Painter's Muse was published last year, and it was... Let me just grab it real quick for you. This is my novel. I'll tell you what it's about. So it's taking place in Venice, 1613, and it's about an artist, Lorenzo Scasi, and he is the son of a mask maker, and he finds in the atelier, in the workplace of his father, a mask that once belonged to Leonardo da Vinci. The mask comes with artistic talent. He has always dreamed of becoming a painter. That's his real passion. And as Lorenzo tries on the mask, he gets the talents of Leonardo da Vinci and he becomes a master painter. And his newfound talent gets him a commission at one of the richest houses in Venice, and he gets to work for Marco Contarini. The problem is that he falls in love with his wife Artemisia, and they start an affair. So on the one hand, there's the love affair, and there's also the mask that comes with grave consequences, and there's also a lot of secrets to unravel within the walls of the palazzo. As for my writing and editing process, it's kind of simple. So I write the first draft of my novel after I did research and planned everything out as much as I can. And then I write my first draft in the shortest period of time that I can manage. And then I work with proofreaders. They give me their comments. I send it back to another round of proofreaders. I make new adjustments, and it goes back and forth like that for a while until the manuscript is completely polished and the way I want it. And then I send it to my publisher. They get back with the notes and things that must be adjusted. I send it back, and when I get it back the final time, I need to read the manuscript in its final form, so there's a lot of rereading going on. Next question. I know you said you don't believe in God, but have you read any of the books of the Bible for their literary value? I have been working my way through the Bible, but I must be honest, I took a little break. I started with a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, but that quickly faded. I do want to get through the whole thing, but it's gonna take me a while. And the reason why I want to read, because I'm not religious, is because of the influence that it had on literature. Next, do you feel that religion still has a role in the 21st century? There are still so many religious people, and I find it incredible that they can find so much support and comfort in their beliefs, which is great. And I respect and appreciate all the religions as long as the person believing in God isn't harming other people because of the religion. So as long as people are appreciating each other's religions and differences and beliefs, I think we are good. I also love that there's still that community feel. It's great that you can find comfort in believing in a God. I just don't understand all the fighting and wanting to convert people, and things that horrible things that are done in the name of God is something that I cannot agree with. When you read classics as a beginner, did you have to refer to the dictionary a lot? Maybe it's just me because English is not my first language and I'm not familiar with any other European languages. I'm still enjoying it a lot, but it takes time. Any advice? Edit, not sure how many questions are allowed. Please ignore if too many. That's not too many. Okay, so when you read classics as a beginner, okay, did I have to refer to the dictionary a lot? No, I actually never used a dictionary. There were times when I looked up words, but I still do that today because sometimes there's just a word that I don't understand, which is completely fine. Let me replace my candle here. But I think when you read in another language, you just sometimes need to look up words, new words, and that's completely fine. And that's also how we learn, right? So the only thing that I can recommend is to use digital books, because then you can tap a word. I'm using the app Linga, and it allows you to tap on a word and it immediately translates it, which makes things a lot easier, because when you are reading a physical copy, you really need to go to your computer or your phone and type out the word, and it takes a lot more energy. So if you find yourself looking up words in every sentence, then it may be better to go to digital versions of books and make sure that you can add them into an app where you can translate words immediately. That's just a huge help for me when I read in a language aside from English that I'm not 100% mastering. It's okay that it takes time, and it's also fine to read in your own language. You don't have to read English, right? But if you love it, just take your time with it, look up things that you don't understand, and eventually it will become easier. Also, don't start with super difficult books, right? Because they can really demotivate. Like when you read Walter Scott and your English isn't at the level it's supposed to be, then it's going to be very demotivating. So yes, reading material that matches your level in English is always a good idea, and maybe challenge yourself and go a little bit above it, but not too much. Next question, where are you from? I understand you wrote a book in Flemish, so I figured you are a Belgian Flemish, am I right? Yes, you're right. I am living in Belgium, near Brussels, in a very small town. And I've actually written 5 books in my own language, and they haven't been translated. And then the 6th novel that I published was my first English one, The Painter's Muse, which isn't translated to Flemish. Next question, do you know of any classic novels that look specifically at music? Considering that you're also a musician, I would imagine that this is an area that would appeal to you. Okay, so this was from Maria. I've often wondered why authors aren't including music more into their novels, because even modern novels, I haven't read many novels that include music, which is why I'm letting you into a secret here. My next novel is going to be very music themed, so that's exciting. Let me check my shelves, but I don't think I will find anything. I've quickly taken a look, and the only thing I can find that has a little bit of music is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and I really like this novel, and I recommend it if you haven't read it. I enjoyed The Painter's Muse very much. Oh, that's great news. And I would love to read your other novel. Is there any chance that it will be translated into English? I love your videos and thank you for putting so much effort into them. That's really sweet. Thank you so much. My Dutch novels won't be translated to English, which is why I made the switch to writing English novels, because a whole new world opened for me, and I feel like I really discovered myself as a writer once I started writing English. I'm so much more proud of my writing style. I love the variety of words and how everything sounds. I don't think they will ever come in English translation, but at the beginning of 2026 there will be another novel for you to read, so I hope you enjoy that one too. Next, do you love classic romance novel? Yes, of course. What's your favorite romance novel? Suggest some short classic books. I don't know if I have a favorite romance novel. I would really have to think hard on that question. So I'm just gonna move to the suggestion of some short classic books. I just picked three because otherwise this video is going to be way too long. But a short novel that I really love is The Sorrows of Young Werther by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. This is an excellent little novella. It is so well written, beautiful, poetic, and I highly recommend. One that I also cannot think and talk about is Thérèse Raquin by Émile Zola. This is a French novel, and the Penguin Classics translation is really good, and it's dark and tragic and creepy, and the vibe and atmosphere is so dark. It's a really great one. And my favorite novel by Thomas Hardy so far, because I haven't read them all, I think I've read 4 of them, and this is A Pair of Blue Eyes. This is under 300 pages, and I could not stop reading this book. I loved it so much, and I highly recommend it. Next question. What kind of music do you like? Who are your favorite music artists or composers? I've always listened to metal and rock, and the last years I must admit that I have stopped listening to metal and rock. I do have 2 favorite bands called Seether and 3 Days Grace. I love those bands so much. But nowadays I actually mainly listen to classical music, to movie music, and this music is just so great to play in the background while studying or reading or writing, and it doesn't distract me. So that's why I lean towards that kind of music, and I just love classical composers like Chopin, Mozart, Bach. I love their music. Next, Martin says, you surprised me in one of your videos by showing a painting of a framed miniature hung on the wall in a house I lived in for many years. I was wondering, okay, there is something weird about the sentence. I was wondering how you came across this painting. I never knew the name of it, and it disappeared some months before I moved out, until you said it was called The Wounded Poacher. Yes, The Wounded Poacher. Such a great painting. I was traveling. I think it was in France, but I dare not say it with certainty. And I saw it in an art museum, and it was so funny because I just started writing my new novel that's coming out next year. And the scene was like a scene from the first chapters of my novel, which is why I mentioned it in one of my videos. I showed it to you, right? It was just an image, so it's not in my house or anything. It was just an image that I showed. It's a really beautiful piece, and it was painted by Henry Jones Thaddeus. Yeah, really beautiful. Next question. What modern books, music, artists, movies, or shows and YouTube channels do you like? Oh my gosh. Okay, the catch is that it must be modern, right? That's difficult. I will be tagging the channels in the description box if you want to check them out, but I'm gonna give you a list. So channels that I must admit that I don't really watch BookTube that often, but I do have some channels that I visit from time to time, and one of them is Mayberry Book Club, and Matthew is such a wonderful guy, and he has actually become a kind of a friend. We have been on calls, and we've been chatting, and he's a really wonderful guy, and I love the content that he's putting out. Also, Carolyn Mary Reads, she's way too big to notice me, but I've been following her channel since the beginning, and I really like her as a person, which is maybe a little bit weird to say because I don't know her personally. I would love to know her, but she comes across as such a kind soul, and that is especially what I like about her videos. She's just the sweetest. She just looks so incredibly kind, and she has also a profound love for the classics like me. Then I have two French channels. So if you are French and or happen to speak French or want to learn French, I could recommend Mémodaire d'Adrien and Nana Oops, and I love their content as well. Then we have Robin Walden. I sometimes click on his videos and watch them if the topic is of interest to me, and I really enjoy them. Then I have two other booktubers who kind of became friends. So we have two readers at Macon Sad. Ruben is such a wonderful man, a very smart man, and he puts out incredible content. I highly recommend. And then Strange Lucidity, also very passionate about the classics and is studying literature at the moment. She's sharing her experience. And yes, so that's Maria. And then I have Rob Pyrie. Or Piri, I don't know, from The Cause. He's putting out amazing content as well. We have Tristan and the Classics. I know that a lot of you must be following him already because he's kind of big in the classics community. And oh my gosh, how I would love to grab a cup of tea with Tristan. And my all-time favorite channel actually is Vashik Armenicus, and his channel is such an inspiration to me. He is such an inspiration to me. I wish we could be friends because he just seems so wonderful. Those were the channels. As for music, I said before, I mainly listen to old music, but I do love 3 Days Grace and Seether. They are such amazing bands. I also like to listen to movie soundtracks. As for movies, I made a quick list, and I'm sure that I will forget my all-time favorites, but that's okay. So a couple of shows that I've been enjoying or enjoyed was You. Anne of Green Gables TV show was really good. Breaking Bad, the screenwriting of that show was excellent. And I recently watched 100 Years of Solitude, which came out this year, I think. And it was really good. I enjoyed it. It was a bit weird, but I couldn't get myself through the novel. It's one of those rare classics that I couldn't get through. And I was surprised to like the show. Another one that I liked was Die Kaiserin. The Lost Stars is a really great historical series. / documentary that was really interesting. I loved Elias Grace as a mini-series. Oh, and the thing, how does it? The Queen's Gambit, that was phenomenal. That was really good. As for movies, just from the top of my head, the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, of course. Legends of the Fall is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love Star Wars movies, old ones. I love Pirates of the Caribbean to pieces. The Lord of the Rings, of course, are my all-time favorite movies. So yes, those are just some examples. Next question, how did you learn French? I learned it in school because I'm in Belgium and this is our second language. So it was kind of not really a choice. I had to speak and learn French. Next question, when you read a book more than once, do you read different translations or the same translation? Well, I love checking out different translations, but I tend to always end up reading my favorite translation because when I compare them, for example, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I've read it 6 times. And oftentimes I think, okay, now I'm going to read a different translation. And then I start the different translation and I've been in a couple of chapters and then I think, the other one is better. So I always end up actually finishing the same translation, but I did read sections of different translations. Do you find French literature easier and more enjoyable because you're familiar with the French language? I struggle with names. Also, do you prefer to read French novels in English or in French? Amazing videos, by the way. Thank you. I haven't read many French books that I didn't like. So it's kind of a coincidence. And I prefer reading them in English for now at this moment because classics in French they're much more difficult than modern novels because of the archaic language. And I feel to read classics in French, you have to speak French fluently. and I don't speak it fluently, I have to look up way too many words, which is why I use an app, and when I tap the word, it immediately translates. And which is also the reason why I pick shorter novels to read, or short stories. For example, Guy de Maupassant, Honoré de Balzac. I pick shorter works because when I pick a big book, it's so much more difficult to keep going. I always have a French novel going because I really want to train myself, and eventually I want to be able to read complete and big novels, but I'm not at that point at this moment. I will take a little break to charge my battery of my camera, and then we'll go on and do part 2. Okay, I am back. Next question. I am new here. Welcome. So I apologize if the answers to these questions are well known. Where are you from originally? Where do you live currently? And what languages do you know in addition to English? Do you have a favorite language? Thank you for your channel. So like I said, I live in Belgium, and my favorite language is English for sure. Who is your favorite character in Les Miserables and why? Of course, my favorite is Jean Valjean. He's actually, I think, my favorite character in all of literature. He is so inspiring, and his emotional struggles are so real and so beautiful. I love the transformation that he's going through, and he has such a beautiful heart. Next, apologies if you've answered this before, but what are your thoughts on audiobooks? I've always preferred physical books because I love them as objects and value the tactile experience. But I've recently embraced audiobooks as I work on monotonous tasks or go on walks through the day. It's given me the opportunity to experience literature I wouldn't have prioritized otherwise and made my days a little more entertaining. Yes, audiobooks are amazing. For some reason, I have a harder time concentrating on audiobooks, and I also miss being able to mark quotes and passages. It's way more difficult to play back a certain section or pause and then write instead of just seeing the words before you. So I prefer reading over listening, but I do enjoy listening to books as well. Next question. Where would you like to see yourself in 5 to 10 years' time on your reading and writing journey? I'm following you on the journey via your channel. In that way, it is my journey too. Even if I only get somewhat close, I will take that. But please, I would prefer to know. Where would I like to be in 5 or 10 years? I just want to continue reading great books. I just hope in 5 years that I have grown as a person, that I know more, that my list of favorite books has changed because I want to change. I want to have learned a lot. I want to have discovered many new authors and works. And it would be wonderful if I could keep continuing to write novels once every 1.5 years. So that would be absolutely wonderful. What's your favorite publishing house? Penguin, Oxford, Everyman, or Modern Library? If I had to choose between Penguin and Oxford, I would go for Oxford. But the main reason is the editions itself and not the quality. So I would place them as equals because I love their introductions. They choose very great translators and the footnotes are great. But the Penguin classics are very prone to damage, and so I feel that I'm more comfortable holding and reading an Oxford Classic edition. As for Everyman's Library, I love those editions as well. They feel so luxurious, they look beautiful. I love the feel of the paper actually. They have great introductions. However, I am more careful with their translations. They often use free and older translations, which are not always the greatest. For example, their translation of The Hunchback of Notre Dame really isn't good, in my opinion. Yes, I have to be more careful with purchasing Everyman's Library and really look up the translators. I don't know what modern library is. I do really want to mention that I love the Norton Critical Editions as well. So if you want to go deeper into a specific work, then the Norton Critical Editions are really great for that. Okay, I'm gonna rephrase this question. I think it says, how do you decide what to read and what's important? Are the guilty pleasures of reading only web novels and stuff with only emotions a waste of time? When are they not a waste of time? How do you know what to give priority? This is really difficult and personal because everything you read and enjoy has value. And I really don't know how to reply to this one because my reading, I always try to get something out of my reading, and I don't really read purely for entertainment. Of course, I read because I love it, but I also want to have the feeling to get something out of it next to pleasure, next to the pleasure of reading. But I don't look down on people who just read for fun and don't want to reflect on what they read. They just read like they would binge watch a Netflix show, you know? And this is something that you really have to decide for yourself. I do recommend trying to challenge yourself and trying to pick something more challenging from time to time and try to grow in your reading journey. At least that's what I'm trying to do. And what you can do is pick one book that is pure entertainment and that you just want to read for fun, and then pick one novel that is a little bit more challenging but that will teach you something. And you can see from day to day for which one you're in the mood, and you're reading them alongside each other, and I think that's always a good idea. Next question. Hello, do you like visiting castles and manors? Doesn't it feel as if the veil between past and present thickens there? If you do, maybe you could mention the ones that are the most beautiful and meaningful to you. I love traveling, I love visiting old places, and yes, it feels very special to stand on a place where so many people have stood before. I must admit that I have not visited a lot of manors and castles. I especially visited palaces. So unfortunately, I cannot give you specific examples, but I'm sure that I will be visiting manors and castles in the future. Which country and city do you live in? Belgium. Where except Paris do you dream to travel one day? Do you have a favorite book since you were a child? So I've been to Paris a lot, and I intend to go there at least once a year, every year, because it's not that far from where I live, and I realize that I don't go enough. But the places that I still want to visit and that I haven't visited yet, well, there are many. I've traveled a lot already, and I'm very grateful that I could do that. But there are so many places, too many to sum up. But to give you a couple of examples, Japan, I would love to go there. Norway, Iceland, I've never been to those places. And Scotland is actually very high on my list. I think that will be next year's trip. Do you have a favorite book since you were a child? No. My parents read to me, and it was like always something else, but I never had a favorite book. When it comes to Russian literature, Pevere and Volonsky seem to be the favorite translation of many people. Have you read PMV, and what is your preferred translation? What is my preferred translation? First of all, I have read Crime and Punishment in the Pevere translation. Let me grab it for you. So this is the Pevere, I think. Here are so many notes inside, always. Yes, Richard Pevere and Larissa Volonsky. Those were the translators. And this is the Vintage Classics edition. I I didn't have any remarks on the translation, and I don't speak Russian, so I cannot compare the original to the translation, but I trust that this was a good translation and I didn't have any issues with it. Next, how extensive is your home library? Can we get a tour? And also, are you using any special ways to track and manage your collection? Yes and yes. You can get a tour. I will do a separate video on this because otherwise this is going to be way too long. But I am planning on doing a tour and giving you a look at all of the books that I own. I should take a look. It's not that extensive actually, because I started collecting books rather late in life. I used to go to the library always. So I use Notion to keep track of all of the books that I own, and I have this list called Library. It kind of looks like an Excel sheet, and it's by alphabet. Every time when I'm gifted a copy or when I purchase a book, I put it in this list because I like keeping track of things. I love making lists, and I also note if I've read it or not, because when I at some point don't know what to read, which will never happen, I can just go to this list and take a look and immediately see which books are still unread. The count of the amount of books says 333. Isn't that a nice number? So it's not really that extensive. I think a lot of people have way more books than that. But yes, I started late in life, and it keeps growing every year, of course. But I'll make sure to make a tour video in the future. Next question is from Sarah. Hi, I love your channel. I wonder if you will translate your books that you have written into other languages such as English, Swedish. I'm so curious about your books that you have written. Thank you so much. So yes, to repeat myself, they will probably not get translated. The problem is when in traditional publishing, someone like Sweden, for example, Sweden must be interested in my book first, and they must decide to buy the rights of my novel, and then they will translate it. So that's how things work, and the chances are really small to get translated. I am just lucky that I am able to write books in English, that my English is good enough to do that, and that I feel comfortable doing that. So I'm just happy that in this way I can go and sell books worldwide. And of course, I hope that other publishing houses from different countries will one day be interested in buying the rights. That would be really great. Next, hi Emily, your channel is lovely. Congratulations. Thank you. I would like to know, what is your favorite literature online course for free that you have taken so far? I'm currently taking one from Harvard, Masterpieces of World Literature. So far, it's really interesting. Thanks. I actually have to say that that's the one that I liked most so far. I have a lot of them still to go through, but until now, that was my favorite one. Next question is from Molly. What do you do for work? I think I already mentioned it in this video. So I'm a massage therapist and I have my own practice at home. And then I work at a lawyer's office as a management assistant, but I'm going to change to working for a publishing house from August on. Next question. So Nick is asking, have you always used Commonplace Books for recapping what you read? If not, what or who inspired you to start? So I started journaling since I was 6, and it's really cringy to read back what I wrote. I just wrote about my day, and I started out that way. And it slowly evolved, so I never stopped journaling. And I always used one journal to track everything. And I've been tracking my reading only since 2017. I wish I had started sooner because I forgot about a lot of books that I read in the past, and I wish I had those lists. But yes, I've been commonplacing and journaling all my life without even knowing that I was doing that. So no, there is no one in particular that inspired me. Next question. Naomi asks, if you could go back in time before you published your first novel, what were you feeling? Nervous, excited, worried it wouldn't be a success? And if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself as a beginner writer? Oh gosh, this is a difficult question. I have evolved as an author, luckily, and my writing has improved. So if I don't even dare to read my debut novel because I know I will feel bad about myself, and I know the quality isn't that bad, but it's just that I evolved as an author. And if I would write the same novel again, I would do many things differently. But especially my writing style has changed. I was feeling very worried. And I was also scared about the reactions that I would get from people, from readers. And it was also the time when I was still reading my book reviews, and that wasn't good. I noticed rather soon that I had to stop reading my book reviews because when I received 10 amazing book reviews and there was one of them really bad, then I would only remember that bad one. So the one advice that I would have given myself is to not go and read the book reviews, to start reading other books outside of my genre, because I started out reading fantasy and writing fantasy, and I would give the advice to myself to read outside of the genre that I write, just to learn from it. And I noticed from the moment I started reading classics that my writing improved tremendously. So yes, I wish I had started that sooner. Next question. When did your fascination with Victorian times start? I've always been so interested in history and in the past, and my fascination for the Victorian era, I want to say, started as a teenager because I was a goth girl, and the Gothic style is very much inspired by the Victorian era, right? So I dressed very gothic. I wore corsets, and I still do. And I loved the style. I wasn't really looking into the Victorian era specifically, but I loved the clothing. So I guess I could say that it started as a teenager. Next question. If you could instantly learn any language for the purpose of reading untranslated books, which language would you learn? My first thought was Russian because I love a lot of Russian authors and it would be amazing to read the original. And it's also a really difficult language to learn, I can imagine. But I think I would rather go with Greek because it's an entirely different alphabet. It's extremely difficult to learn. For me, it would open up the possibility to read the ancient texts. So that would be really wonderful to read the Greek texts and the books and the poetry. Next, Jess says, in your journal video, you mentioned having journals for French and for Victorian history. That's correct. What are some books on history you found particularly interesting? Which books would you recommend for someone who wanted to start out with reading about either of these two historical topics? So I have a commonplace book for French history and I have one for the Victorian era, and I actually gather information from everywhere. So it could be videos that I watch, documentaries on television, it could be from footnotes from the fiction novels that I learn, because oftentimes footnotes explain something about the time period and then I just transfer it to my notebook. But it could also come from reading a nonfiction novel, like, for example, How to Be a Victorian by Ruth Goodman. I made a video about this book on my channel, so my information comes from everywhere. The problem is I cannot really recommend history books at the moment because a lot of the history books that I've already read came from the library, and our library is in Dutch. So most of those books have never been translated. One book that I do own, and that's a history book, is The Black Count by Tom Rice. And Tom Rice is really famous for his history books. And what I liked so much about this one is that it's about the father of Alexandre Dumas. And he was a very famous French author. He wrote The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers. And because I love Alexandre Dumas as an author, it was extra interesting to learn about his father, about the time period, about being a colored person in during these times. And it's extremely well written, so I would recommend The Black Count if you like literature and want to know more about the time period. It is set during Napoleon's time. Next question, do you have any tips for learning a new language? So I'm currently learning Latin, Italian, and I'm improving my French. So if you want to start a completely new language and you don't know anything about it yet, then I think language apps can be really interesting, like Duolingo and such. What I did for Latin is I just looked at the Play Store on my phone and I found Legentibus or something like that, and I started with that, and it's really good, but it's only Latin. I don't think you can pick another language. So perhaps you can find an app that helps you on your way. For language learning, it is so important to do the three things. So to talk, to listen, to write. If you can combine those three things, then I think you're good. And I'd say use the internet to your advantage. There are so many channels on YouTube about language learning, and I'm sure that there are channels to be found about the language that you want to learn. Next is David. David says, hello Emily, I've been trying to think of a question for you throughout my day, but I just can't think of one really. I guess it's because I have gotten to know you over the past 2 years through your channel and the book club. I noticed on your last video your subscriber count is up to almost 20k. That is fantastic. I so very much enjoy your videos and look forward to seeing them every week. So I guess I will just say congratulations, my friend. 25k is not far away. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much, David. All right, the next one. 2 questions. What is your favorite Jane Austen novel, and have you read any Thomas Hardy? My favorite Jane Austen novel, it's difficult because I've read them over the course of a couple of years, and I feel like I should read them one after the other to really decide which ones I love most. But if I would have to pick one right now, I think it would be Sense and Sensibility. And yes, I have read Thomas Hardy. A Pair of Blue Eyes is really my favorite until now. I've read Tess of the D'Urbervilles and, oh my gosh, The Well-Beloved, and what's his other famous one? Far from the Madding Crowd. Vicky is asking, who are your favorite booktubers and bookstagram accounts? So I've already mentioned my favorite booktubers, so I'm gonna skip that. I'm a new follower and a soul sister who loves classics and French decor. I ordered your English novel and will read once I finish Hunchback of Notre Dame. I live in the USA. Thank you so much for supporting me as an author, and yes, I really appreciate it. Next, if you could ask any writer, living or not, to start a booktube channel, who would it be? Well, since Oscar Wilde was famous for his personality before he was famous for his writing, I'd say Oscar Wilde, because I think he must have been such an enchanting, special, witty person, and I would have loved seeing him on camera. Next question. Hello, I love your voice and room aesthetics for reading. What is your favorite Russian literature novel? Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Clarissa asks, hello, how much time do you typically leave in between rereads? Do you tend to leave a good amount of time in between rereads of the same book, or do you tend to reach for a book that you've already read again whenever it calls to you? I'd love to know your thought process behind the rereading of classics. I usually wait a little while. I've never reread a novel in the same year. So I'd say I wait at least a year, and I actually just start rereading whenever I feel like it. Next one. Strange question. Oh no. But one thing I noted from your videos is the style and design of the furniture and the settings in your living space. How much has your interest in the classics influenced your choice of style? And yes, it's a sneaky second question, but linked. Which piece of furnishing or art you have was most influenced by a book you've read? I don't think I have furniture based on a book that I've read, but I do have a portrait of Victor Hugo, and I also have a couple of artworks from Notre Dame Cathedral. I have been decorating like this before I got into classic literature, so I'd say it's completely, it's not linked at all. And I think it's very much a coincidence that everything just clicks with each other, like the classic books and the classic interior. Next, have you considered reviewing more nonfiction books on your channel? I love that question. And if so, what genre do you think you'd read or review? History, philosophy, science, etc. I don't follow too many booktubers, but out of the few, I think it's interesting that the ones I do follow either review just fiction or just nonfiction, never both. This is so true. And since I told you before in this video that I want to read more philosophy, I think I will also be reviewing and talking about philosophy more on the channel. As for nonfiction, like I said before, I'm repeating myself so many times here. I'm really sorry. I have been reading a lot of Dutch history books and nonfiction books because I always tend to go to the library. But I am purchasing more and more English books as well, and reading and purchasing the books in English makes it so much easier to talk about it on the channel because everything is already in the language of the channel, and I would like to include more nonfiction. I recently did that review of the nonfiction book of How to Be a Victorian, and I would love to do more stuff like that. Next question. What other career options do you think might work for someone with similar interests and similar old soul mindset? My gosh. This is a really difficult question because your passions don't necessarily have to be linked to your work. Like I've been working for years as a management assistant, which isn't a creative job at all. And I've been doing it with a lot of pleasure. But you know, jobs for book lovers could be working in literature, in a library. You could become a teacher of history or something, philosophy. You could work in more creative things like renovating art, renovating books, rebinding books, etc. Those are just the options that pop into my head. And the final question of Denise. Emily, you speak about your clothes, love your style. Do you sew your clothes? Thank you so much. Yes, I love making clothes, but I especially make skirts, long skirts, because those are really, really difficult to find in the stores. Because I love very lush and maximalist skirts, and also high waist. And then there are some corset tops that I make like this, but it's not a priority. Like making clothes is on the bottom of my list, and I only do it when I really have a lot of time and when I really need a certain piece. Thank you so much for watching, for sending in your questions, for supporting me. It really, really means a lot. And I hope to see you next week.